Hey, welcome to a Wiser Retirement podcast. Leaving a financial legacy isn't something that happens by accident. It takes planning. We've put together a guide with 7 steps to leave a financial legacy and have made it available for free on our website. This guide covers designing your legacy, estate planning, financial education, and protecting your legacy. The link to download 7 steps to leave a financial legacy is listed in the episode description, or you can go to wiserinvestor.com, scroll to the bottom, and find it there. Now on to today's episode.
Welcome to a Wiser Retirement Podcast. We believe the best financial advice should always be conflict-free. I'm your host, Casey Smith. Guiding you to financial freedom is my co-host today, Brad Lyons. And today we are joined by Gary Bottoms, Chairman and CEO of the Bottoms Group. Gary, we've known each other actually quite a while.
Long time.
And hey, Brad.
Hi, Casey.
We've known each other quite a while. And I'm really grateful that you came on to have a conversation with us today.
Sure. My pleasure.
I want to start off, today's topic is about really succession planning for small business owners, which I'm sure you see a lot of. Your primary job at Bottoms Group is to focus on life insurance, right?
Right.
And so buy-sell agreements, that's a life insurance strategy, and,
right.
and I'm sure many others that we can get into. But you wrote a book. When did you write this book?
I think it came out in 2013.
But this is an updated version that I think I have.
Yeah, the updated was a little later. I don't know, maybe 2018.
2018. Okay. So you can find it on Amazon. It's 10 strategies to avoid regrets. And it's called Getting It Right, the generational impact of our life and estate plan. So what drove you to write this book? Because there is some things about insurance in here, but you actually don't talk about insurance the entire book.
Right, right. Well, I started in this business when I was 22 years old, which is a long time ago.
Right out of Georgia Tech, right?
Right out of Georgia Tech.
Go Jackets?
Yeah, go Jackets. All dressed up out there, and didn't really know much of anything, actually. At 22,
right?
Honestly, being honest.
I was 22 once, yes.
Yeah. We can remember that. So by 2013 or thereabouts, I'd experienced a lot. I'd seen a lot with families. I'd seen a lot with businesses. I'd seen things that worked. I'd seen things that didn't work. And I'm basically at heart an introvert. I don't go out. I'm not a sales guy.
You don't do podcasts daily?
No, I don't do podcasts daily. I don't go out and push things. I don't consider myself a good salesman, but I listen a lot. And I have a lot of empathy. And I've seen a lot of families go through things, and I've had a lot of conversations with families. And I know it's very, very, one of the most difficult things you deal with, for a lot of us anyway, is family-type relationships, because you want it all to work.
Right.
And I had seen some things that didn't work. And that's why I came up with a subtitle, Strategies to Avoid Regrets, because it's kind of sad to live a long, good life, maybe successful financially, have a great business, for example, look successful, be successful by the world's standards, and then lose it at the very end. It's like playing a good game and losing at the very end. Mm-hmm. At the last second, you lose it, you blow it, you're gone, and things are blown up. Things didn't work the way. Yeah, I thought Mom and Dad were smart people, but look at this mess they left. So that's why I wrote the book. That's a long answer to why I wrote the book. Because I got a lot inside me I wanted to get out. And frankly, not many people want to listen to all that, like a speech. You can't spend a year meeting with people and have a bunch of sessions to say all that. So I wrote it and figured that those that were interested in it, could read it. And I've been amazed. I wrote it, by the way, to give away, not to sell. And I've given away. That's why we had to do the second edition, because we've given away all the
first edition,
the initial rounds. So anyway, that's why I did it.
Well, your theme goes right along with our theme for our podcast for this quarter, which is leaving a legacy. And we have a download on our website, not a book, but just 7 steps to make sure you're leaving a good legacy. And legacy, we talked about in our podcast, Brad and I have, is not all about finances. It's also your morals, your how to manage money. It's not all about wealth and passing on $100 million, right? One of the keys to success, I still love our interview with Mr. Hughes, was the
covenant, the family covenant.
Yes, thank you. the family covenant, but then also making each generation the first generation, so that we all have mentalities of being wealth creators, and not just spending the wealth. And so if you have a first generation mentality, then your family wealth overall will continue to grow. And so it's, in your business, life insurance is a very important part of a whole plan. And you talk about building a team, and we talk about that as well, putting together a team of people, because it's not just one person. Financial advisors like us end up being the quarterback, and we bring in people, and sometimes all at the same time, if it's complicated enough. But when you think about just business planning in general, what are some pitfalls that you see? Maybe clients that you can't name in the past. Maybe it's just a terrible situation, or you made a recommendation, they didn't take it, and it ended up being not the best scenario in the end.
Well, one of the hardest pieces of all that pitfall is communication. And it's difficult. You're here every day, in your business, and things are working okay. Is today the day to bring up something sticky? Is today to bring up something? Is today the day I want to bring this up? It's easy to put off. Mm-hmm. And like business transitions, most things in life boil down to choices. And one choice is to basically do nothing. I saw a short little article in the Wall Street Journal. This was 2-3 years ago. It really struck me. It was a business owner in Florida that had a family, and he was quoted as, "It's too hard. I'm just gonna leave everything like it is. I'm gonna die and let my kids work it out."
Jeez.
That was his plan. So everything's a choice. That was his choice. I don't know if he actually lived. I don't know if he's still alive or what.
Right.
But that's really a bad choice.
Yeah.
Because that probably isn't going to end very well. You're going to have siblings that don't like each other. This is unfair. That's not right.
I worked with a widow one time. Her husband was a vet. He found out he had cancer, and he was a vet in an area that didn't have any other vets.
Yeah.
Like, it was him.
Yeah.
He had found out he had cancer, and he just shut the place down.
Yeah.
Told everybody that, oh no, I'm done.
Right.
And all I could think was, oh my gosh, there was so much value there that could have been sold. Imagine someone coming out of the UGA vet program. I'm sure they'd love to have bought a little practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
then what made matters worse is, vet buildings aren't exactly
transferable to other uses.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
Everybody wants a kennel in their bag, right? And so then we're trying to sell this building now as a vet, that was a vet, as something else, and it just wasn't going well, especially in that time period. But
yeah, sometimes people like that. They started off young and they were an entrepreneur and they built it, and they're important. They got people that come to them with their dogs and cats and things,
Yeah.
and they feel good. They enjoy that, and they get hung up about this is mine, this is my life. I built it, and they don't think a whole lot about the future,
mm-hmm.
and they don't really have a dream for the future necessarily. It's just enjoying that. And many smallest of businesses, particularly, sometimes the founder ends up gliding into the dust with it. He's just there. He or she is just there.
Yeah.
And they like it. And all of a sudden now they're 70, 80, whatever. They're still trying to hang on. Never really step back to think about their life. And then one day, lo and behold, they die. They never thought a whole lot about that, the future.
Right.
So it's an orientation towards the future, not just with you in it, but with others in it, and what that's going to. We have a question that I like to ask our clients and folks that we are beginning a relationship with. I don't want to talk about insurance, by the way. I just want to talk about them. And I have a very simple question that sometimes, well, most of the time people don't have a ready answer for. And the question is this. Say I'm sitting down with a couple, married couple. I ask, tell me, kind of paint a picture of what needs to happen if wife dies. Don't think about this in terms of how much insurance you might need or anything. What needs to happen? Mm-hmm. And then I shut up, and I got a pad, and I write down what they think. And they say, well, let me think about that. And often that conversation leads to nothing to do with insurance, but it's like, you know what? Our will, it reminds me, our will, we did that like 15 years ago. I can't remember what it says. I probably need to review that. Mm-hmm. It leads to those conversations. And like from a money management standpoint, well, actually, I've got the relationship with Casey or whoever, but you've never even met Casey, actually. So I might need to get you and Casey together so there's a transition there. So you know what we're doing. I know what we're doing, but you don't know what you're doing. So back and forth like that, and then flip it and say, what happens if the husband dies? Mm-hmm. Which I was just alluding to. I mean, he's kind of got it, manages everything, and gets them thinking. So, and then eventually it gets around to the financial. Well, if one dies, is the other one going to continue to work or not? What about the kids? What's the deal with them? So it's orientation toward the future.
Yeah, and that's a process we go through in planning. I always say that we're a financial planning firm that happens to also do asset management because everything starts with the plan. There's no client here that doesn't have a plan.
Right.
And that's how we were able to identify where the weak areas are in a plan. But but businesses are so much more complicated. Mm-hmm. When you want to pass a business, especially if there's employees and it's like its own baby, and they treat it like a baby sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think that for most business owners, my recommendation would always be to go away and think about it. Like you can't think about it in your office. You need to get up. You need to go somewhere separate to where you can think clearly. Mm-hmm. You were part of the strategic coach program for many years. You probably thought you're clearest when you were away from the chaos, away from kids and family, and just focused on this is what I want, and this is what I need to do, and this is my mission, right?
Right. Yeah, and one of the tenets of the strategic coach program, which I spent 25 years going to Chicago once a quarter for 25 years. That's 200 plane rides.
Right.
But one of the initial tenets that came out of it is to make sure your future dreams are better and bigger than whatever has happened in the past. In other words, keep oriented toward the past. The past is only valuable from the standpoint of its research and development. You tried some things worked, some things didn't work. Yeah, that's gone. You can't go back and fix it. So let's think about going forward into the future, which involves all this we're talking about. But the question I ask, the families is, it's not about how grand the past has been. It's about, if one of you dies or if you want to retire, and like in your planning, what needs to happen? There's a big fear out there maybe about running out of money. I mean, even people that have a lot of money still have a deep-seated fear of running out.
Oh, yeah.
Because they remember what it was like to be broke.
Right.
And they don't want to ever go back there. So they got these fears, and people are living to be some pretty old these days. And both of my parents died with Alzheimer's. So I've been through years of that with both of them.
Yeah.
Which scares me about my genes.
Right. But that's tough.
Yeah. So the future is the orientation to all of this and not messing it up.
Yeah, sure. When you, you ran a business for many years now.
Yeah.
What is your, do you think you did the family balance well, or would you go back and change any of that?
I've thought about that a lot after I just said, don't think about the past. I haven't thought about that. But the good news is that, I really don't have regrets. I remember way back, our kids were, the oldest was maybe 15, you know. So we were on a trip to Colorado. We're out at Vail, Colorado, and it was in the summertime, actually. And so had an assignment, and we said, all right, we have three kids. They're all obviously adults now, and here's what we're going to do. Here's a piece of paper. Here's a pen or some kind of writing instrument, whatever it was. Go out. There's a hillside. Go find a quiet place. We're going to make a family mission statement. Sounds kind of hokey.
No, not at all.
You know, you do,
To them it would be, yes.
you do these things, and you know, you hang them up, and nobody really ever necessarily reads it a whole lot. But they remember the experience of going out and write down items, what words that describe the kind of family you want us to be. And they all did that. And they came back, and Melissa, my wife, and I, we sat down with their pieces of paper, and we did the exercise ourselves. And we made sure we molded all those. We didn't leave anything out. It may not have been the words they used, but the concepts that they described. We molded it into a family mission statement, and we got it. I can't pronounce the word calligraphy. You know, got it. You know,
yeah.
The fancy kind of. Got somebody to do that, and we all signed it, and it's been hanging in our house since. So we were not perfect with all of this, but having a flexible schedule all those years, I could go to all of the, school, conferences and things like that. So yeah, we really were there. Maybe it aired on we were there maybe too much, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like I was out working all the time.
I think that's being a business owner. People say, I'm a business so I could just do whatever I want and not have a boss. And actually, we have about 350 bosses here.
Right,
So
right.
It's not that way at all. Every person we work for is a new boss. Every week we acquire new bosses. Right. But it certainly gives you flexibility. Yeah. I work more than I would if I was in a normal job. But I can be where I need to be. Right. And so, it's very different. And at the same time, for me, it's risk. I like the risk reward. I like knowing that we can grow a firm if we take certain risk, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a reward for that. Where there's not always that. It's not always that way unless I guess sales positions are a little more like that. But sales positions, you definitely have a boss. And you definitely have quotas, and you got to go kill it. Yeah. But that's interesting. I wanted to get your take on that. Well,
I've always been a believer in mentors and coaches.
Yeah.
And part of that comes, I guess, from those early years of starvation. I reached out to a few friends that were ahead of me, and because I almost got out of this business, it was so hard. And I picked 3 people, and I went to them, and they spoke truth into me about things I needed to know and hear about. And so that set off the lifelong agenda for me of having people around that I can talk to that will tell me the truth. That's why I was in this coach program for 25 years. And that was a day each quarter that I would sit down and think about what I'm doing and think about what I'm thinking. And I come back with some written. You don't turn in your work. You don't have to stand up and say what you did. It's all, they don't care if you can go and just ignore the whole thing, but I never did. Yeah. So I really attribute a lot of intentionality to having people in your life that make you do things that don't come naturally, and that's taking time out to think.
Yeah, absolutely. So. I built Wiser. I was an airline pilot for 12 years, and when you're flying, a lot of times it's like watching paint dry. Followed by 60 seconds of sheer terror, but
the sunsets and sunrises are beautiful.
Yes, absolutely. But I remember so many mornings. You get up at 4:30, get to the airport, you work that first flight back to Atlanta, and then I'd be done for the day. And you're sitting there for maybe 2 hours, and you're just you're literally just just sitting there, right? There's hardly any traffic on the radio. And some of my best ideas just come from being up and just kind of awake and alert and thinking. And also conferences. I've found conferences that I'm not a speaker at, that I feel like that's a time that I'm able to really think about what we need to change, what the future can look like. So the theme there is it's just all getting away. It's all removing yourself from the business to go think somewhere. And I think that's important.
Right.
When we think about business succession planning, a lot of times there's a lot of businesses have partnerships. So key man insurance. So if Brad and I are partners, if I pass away, there's a life insurance policy that allows him to buy from my estate, my share. Mm-hmm. There's also key man insurance that's also owned by the company, right? So if a key employee were to pass away, then the company has resources to go out and make a big hire.
Mm-hmm. Right.
What else is out there that we might be missing?
Well, it kind of goes back to that question about what needs to happen. And if one of the partners in the business is the key to the relationships out there with your customers or clients, and you don't even know them, that's a problem. That person leaves. Your clients may have somebody waiting in the wings ready to take the place of that relationship. So there is a potential for loss of clients, loss of a part of your business. If somebody dies, nobody's doing anything wrong. It's just the way it happens. So the purpose of life insurance is to create money. I mean, it's an asset that a business owns, an individual owns, it's just owned by somebody or something. And the purpose is to create dollars, and it's all structured properly. It's tax-free dollars when somebody dies. So if a death is going to cause a loss, life insurance is something to be considered.
So if the company's buying the life insurance on a key man, that means it's not you don't get to write it off as an expense for the company.
Right.
But it is received tax-free.
Yes, that's the way it works.
And that's typically built on top of what, whole life or variable life?
Could be any.
I mean, it could technically be term, I guess.
Yeah, it could be. It depends on, the life insurance business has gotten more and more complicated. And the interest in all financial services, as y'all have probably noticed, has spiked up tremendously since COVID, particularly on the life insurance side, because so much talk about death and, do I have it? Am I going to be in the hospital next week? Am I breathing okay? So, so it all comes down with life insurance is how long does it need to remain in effect? Is this something that's just going to be a need for 10 years? If so, term insurance is the answer. If it's 15, it depends on the age, but now the policies are so flexible, we can dial in how long we want them to last and have a guaranteed premium, and it could be for lifetime, or you can dial in age 92 if you want to, or some other age. It's all flexible, but we're big believers in having the guarantees last as long as the need will be there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Because we're asked to review a lot of policies by financial advisors and our team members and so forth. And it's amazing how little the owners of the policies understand about the policy. They may have bought it a few years ago and interest rates were higher and they started paying a premium. And they don't know that the continuance of the policy is dependent upon interest returns. And so the policy's behind. Interest rates have been lower.
Right.
The stock market went through a period of 10 years of subpar, sub-average returns a few years ago. So things got behind, and policies may be prone to collapse, or you have to pay a really high premium. And those are surprises, which are bad conversations to have. So it comes to how long it needs to last.
Yeah, especially with the variable policies, it's not set it and forget it. It's more like set it and monitor it.
Yeah, none of it needs to be set and
forget about it.
I mean, even a term policy, people can buy a 10-year term policy or 15, and time flies. and they forget about it. They get, paying this level premium. It's coming out of their bank account or whatever, and it's all there. And if they don't review it, or nobody asks them to review it, or nobody brings it up, they get a letter in the mail. Hey, your premium is going from X to 10X, next month. It's like that's a negative conversation.
Right.
It's like, already? I didn't know that.
Right.
So hopefully the policy's still convertible. It may not. Convertible means you can flip it to another kind of insurance designed to last longer. Some term policies have good conversion rights. Some have very weak conversion rights. And it may be it's not even convertible anymore if you wait till the very end. So it has to be monitored, and few policies out there. There's not many firms around like ours that, they're planning to be around for a long time and want to avoid future negative conversations.
Right.
So, and plus we care about the people. They become our friends.
Yeah.
So we make sure people understand how it works and remind them frequently through our correspondence and so forth.
We typically, most of our clients are accumulating wealth at a pretty good clip. And when we do our planning and we look at life insurance, to me, it always makes sense to do the term simply because, assuming that things keep going the way they are, they have more than enough net worth at 65 to be basically self-insured. Some of them don't even need long-term care because they've accumulated. Right. When we do the analysis on if you had to be in long-term care, their net worth just doesn't decline that much.
Right.
What is your take on buy term, invest the difference?
Wow, that question's been around forever.
I know it has.
And again, it comes down to how long you want it to last.
So you're just saying it's situational.
It's all situational, and when it comes to term insurance, my experience over many years is that there's a lot of psychology around having life insurance. I'll tell you a story. It's kind of a negative one on me. My uncle, he's passed away, so he won't hear this, but my uncle came to me many years ago. I got lots of uncles, so I'm not.
You're not just telling us which uncle.
I'm not telling which one. Came to me and says, I'm getting a divorce and I need insurance for 10 years. And I don't approach, I never talked to him about insurance. He knew I was in the insurance business. So he comes, I need a 10-year term policy. I said, great. I didn't ask a whole lot. He's my uncle. I'm not going to argue with him. So we did a 10-year term policy. Time flies. His divorce is over. 10 years goes by. And he gets that letter in the mail and it says, your premium's going from blah, blah, blah to like out the roof. And he calls me. He wasn't angry. He loved me. But he says, what's the letter about? I said, well, don't you remember? You said you're going to need it for 10 years. And, well, yeah, but I actually still need it. So he ended up paying some really high premiums, and then he ended up dropping it, and he got Alzheimer's. Anyway, it didn't end well. And that was a negative conversation for me. I felt like he didn't understand it. But I see that a lot. People have term policies, and they get used to having it, and they want it to last. And the use for the insurance may change. It may no longer be for family security. It may be for charitable reasons, or it may be for, if they own a business, for estate equalization. I mean, my own dad had some, I'm talking too much here, but my own dad had life insurance, and he didn't need it anymore to take care of me and my sister, but he had Alzheimer's. So my sister and I paid the premiums because we want to keep it in effect to reimburse us for what we were paying for the care.
It's wealth replacement.
Yes.
You can spend the assets down, replacing them with the life insurance proceeds to even out the estate.
Right. But that was a permanent kind of policy. So I'm saying that on paper, one thing can happen if you run the numbers.
Yep.
But life insurance being an asset, we measure the value as the internal rate of return on the death benefit, not the cash.
Yeah.
I mean, we do life insurance sometimes for cash accumulation because it's the tax advantages, and you can drive down the amount of insurance and beef up what you pay in. That helps with accumulation. But most of what we do is protection oriented, and we measure it by the internal rate of return upon death, and that's a tax-free number. And it's a decent number, even if you die really old.
Yeah.
So it's a conservative asset. So we're not really big, to answer your question, buy term, invest the difference. I've never really seen it work, all the way down, like this is what I'm doing. They just think they're doing it, and they end up not having the life insurance.
Which is the important part of, making sure that we're in front of our clients every single year and that we're going over those topics. That's something that in our industry, we kind of poke fun of our own industry, financial services, because there's such a low barrier to entry. Like anybody become a financial advisor fairly quickly, right?
Insurance too.
And so therefore, when I go to conferences, I just get frustrated because I'm shaking hands. I was joking with Brad several years ago when we went to our first conference. I told Brad, I said, Brad, I have the knack of sitting at the worst table. So I look around, okay, I'll go sit here, and I'll sit to the worst table. I mean, I remember many years ago, I sat next to an advisor, and I said, because ETFs were new back then, right? This is a long time ago. And I said, you're using ETFs? Because we're in the ETF lunch, right? And he goes, no, I don't know, man. I just buy clients whatever's hot. That's what I buy them. If they want Google, I get them Google. I'm just thinking, oh my Lord. So we did it again, didn't we? I think we sat at kind of this oddball table. Although the second day of that conference, we did sit next to that lady who's in charge of ESG investing for a very, very large asset manager. And she told me not to do it. The whole thing was a scam.
Yeah.
We won't name her.
No, I will not name her or the company, but I was like, yeah, I knew it was, but no, that was my validation when the person in charge of it for a multinational asset management firm says it's a scam, then it's a scam. But yeah, that just goes into, keeping in touch with your client. And I don't know that that's really the insurance model either. You don't typically, as insurance agents, you don't go, okay, we're going to sit down this year and we're going to review your insurance policy. You probably couldn't even get people even to come in.
Well, we do remind them that it's important to do it.
Yeah.
And we've got clients all over the country. People move around. So it's hard. It is hard. They can do that later. But I was reviewing a policy that a financial advisor sent just this week, and there was no contingent beneficiary. It wasn't anything we did. It wasn't one of our policies, but there's all sorts of sloppiness out there that is kind of lying in a drawer someplace and can come and create a lot of complexity if that primary beneficiary is no longer around and there's no contingent beneficiary, and it goes to the estate, and that's not what they want. It's just a blank that was not filled in or changed or updated.
Yeah.
Well, to your point earlier, it's an asset.
It's an asset.
It's a piece of property. It just helped be in contract form,
and
so it needs to be reviewed relative to the circumstance that a person's in at whatever point in time that it's being reviewed, and circumstances do change.
And I can tell you the interest peaks tremendously when a death occurs. I mean, the family wants to know about this. How does it work? How quickly can we get this money? Sometimes it's needed more desperately than other times, but sometimes it's really needed in a hurry.
Yeah.
And if insurance companies upon a death, they want to push the money out. I mean, they're required by the state to pay interest, not much interest, but a little bit of interest from the date of death till they get the check out the door. But so they want to get the money out, but they got to be real careful who they send the money to, because if they end up sending it to the wrong entity or the wrong person, getting it back is very difficult.
Right.
So they're careful.
Yeah.
So we want to get the money out. We just got to know who to send it to. We got to be confident we got it right.
Yeah.
So that's why everything's to be in order.
Shifting gears a minute. Well, I will say to all that, that's the importance of having a comprehensive financial plan. And that's the importance of reviewing that plan once a year, because that checks all the boxes in all the categories,
right?
Not just retirement planning, comprehensive planning. So that's property and casualty. That's insurance. That's your estate work, right? That should be looked at least once a year. And I think that's what the good thing about advisors is that we can hold families accountable and make sure that they're doing that. Let's shift gears a second. So again, this session, this quarter is about legacy planning and teaching the next generations about money and giving is very important.
All right.
I know your son, David. You did a great job. David's an amazing guy.
Good guy.
And I know Laura.
Yep.
Who's an attorney now.
Yeah.
I actually referred a client to an attorney in town who begged me to go, got the attorney's permission that we wouldn't be violating any attorney-client privilege. So I went, and I was very surprised. She was sitting behind me the whole time. Laura was. I didn't know it.
Yeah,
She come in with a meeting. I stood up. I was like, "Hey, I know that person."
Yeah, right. Yeah. She's just accomplished that. Yeah.
And so, what did you do anything growing up to teach them about money? Because we didn't have Dave Ramsey back then. There was no course. We've been talking about my daughter taking a Dave Ramsey course to earn a saddle, and my son has recently been given an incentive to take the Save Teen Dave Ramsey course.
Yeah.
But it's like a whole semester's worth of work. This is not easy peasy stuff. But I feel like a lot of people just get lucky, or your fiber is obviously part of them, right? You and Melissa's
somehow,
somehow all that science stuff works out.
Right.
So, but did you do anything to them growing up? Say, this is the saving jar, this is the giving jar.
Not that detailed. I'm not sure that would have worked. They're all different. We have 3. They're all different.
Yeah.
And so we did try an experiment, and I'm not going to identify who did what, but Melissa and I don't know. They were, David was probably in high school by now. But we said, okay, we're going to have a special dinner. And we had 6 envelopes. We had, in one envelope was $3,000, a check for $3,000. Now, this is for your future. Mm-hmm. Don't blow it. Put it away. And the other envelope was a check for $1,000 or an IOU kind of thing for $1,000. And so your job here is to, over the next year, find somebody, some cause, something out there you want to give this $1,000 to, or divvy it up and give it away. I want you to give it away. Mm-hmm. And we tried to teach them empathy.
Yeah.
I don't know how successful we were, but we tried. Yeah.
That's probably a hard thing to teach.
It is. But one of our kids said, I have a friend. His dad just lost his job, and that I'm not even going to say which gender here, mm-hmm. but that child wanted to get a money order and put it in their mailbox anonymously for $1,000, not tell them. So that was
cool.
That's what one did.
Yeah.
Another one. The other 2 kind of did nothing with it, but one of them came up sometime several months later and said, well, so-and-so is going to camp, and they're trying to raise money, to go to camp, and I wonder if y'all would like to give. And Bill went off and said, well, right. What did you do with your money? Oh, no, this is like the parents are supposed to give. No.
So they were keeping it.
Yeah, they're keeping it. And the other, I'm not sure what they finally did with it. So we tried with varying degrees of success.
Yeah.
But we took them to things. We took them, like my own fiber was molded. My dad was a life insurance agent right around Marietta to the lower income population. He was a debit life insurance. You don't even know what that is, probably.
I do. They went around and they collected.
Door to door, collected.
Yep.
Wow.
And
one of the largest ones was this Atlanta Life down here, wasn't it? Years and years.
It seems really dangerous today.
Yeah. No, you couldn't do that today. I don't think it even, I'm sure it doesn't exist, but that's how he fed us when we were growing up. And that's why I didn't want to go in the insurance business, because I didn't want any part of whatever he was doing.
Right.
It just looked, anyway, but here I am. But every Thanksgiving we would get together, or my parents would get like shoe boxes and wrap them in crepe paper and put fruit in them and nuts and candy and stuff. And my dad would drive us around to some of his, I don't know how he picked out who to go to, but he picked houses out, and he would sit out in the car and send us 2 little kids, me and my sister, up to the door with these boxes, and we'd give it to them. And I remember going to one in particular that thought that we were poisoning, maybe poison. You know,
Oh, wow.
She was rude to us. And my dad was out in the car. I don't know what we said. My sister's older. She was doing all the talking. I was just watching, you know. But it was like she didn't trust us. So you kids are blah, blah, blah. And we left it. The next year we went back, same house, went up there, and she was totally transformed because she wasn't poisoned. Mm. She realized we were there again. So that taught me, and I might have been 6 years old, 5 years old. I was really little.
Right.
So my parents did a lot of that with me. We tried different little things along the way with our kids. Successful, unsuccessful, we'll have to see, but they're all good people and got good hearts. And empathy and caring about other people is huge. Like you said, it's not all about just us.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. We're trying to add financial advisors to our firm. And that's what separates a lot of candidates from other candidates is that the first conversation is how much money can I make?
Yeah.
And I need the first conversation to be how many people can we help?
Because money
the money comes with the help.
And the money can also be a burden.
True.
It can be a burden. I mean, I've got lots of stories and time's running out, but you know, I've seen stories where sit with a business owner or a wealthy person and say, you know, I know if I leave all this to my kids, I got this one and that one and the other. If I leave it to this one, it'll ruin him. Mm-hmm. So what do I do? It's hard.
Yeah.
You know, being a good steward of what you've accumulated is not an easy task, and it deserves a lot of.
Yeah. You know, as my kids get older and they're teenagers, I realize it gets harder. There's probably things I could have done differently when they were younger with empathy, charitable type stuff. It gets harder when they're teenagers because we become very stupid when they're teenagers.
Right.
And so part of it, I feel like it's starting to escape me. But certainly with little ones, I think what it all comes down to is they typically do what they mimic or what they see. They mimic what they see. And so then by seeing you doing that, then I would think that, okay, that's what we do, right? But I think all children, human nature is selfish. And so you constantly are having to overcome that selfish nature, you know?
Yeah, I'll put in a plug for the Cobb Community Foundation.
Absolutely,
here.
Yeah.
Aren't you on the board?
No, I'm an affiliated advisor.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's right. Well, a donor advised fund can be used. You know, the parents put money in this fund, and you get your grandkids together or kids, and have them be kind of like what I did with my experiment.
Yeah.
You know, many years ago. And we got this amount of money. We want to give it away over the next year. Help us think through who to give it to. Be aware of needs that you see out in the community, and then we, as the adults, can actually. Here's some things going on. Which one do you want us to give this money to? And we'll do this kind of together. It teaches them that everybody's not necessarily like them.
Yeah.
Affluent. There are people out there that are really hurting.
Yeah.
Hungry.
Absolutely.
Worried about having to move out next month.
Absolutely.
Mama lost her job. Dad lost his job. You know, that's.
Yeah. During COVID, I saw it for the first time. I saw the Marietta Country Club and clubs up in Highlands, North Carolina, reach their peak membership and start wait list. At the same time, at the time I was on the Wellstar board, we would get some of these reports, hunger reports. Mm-hmm. And those reports were like, we have more people in Cobb County that are going hungry than ever before. Yeah. And it's not like they moved here. Their life changed, right? And yeah, it broke my heart because I'm like, man, this is crazy.
There are huge needs,
and so there's big needs out there right now.
Right here, I know. I said I'm big on counselors and mentors. One mentor told me a while back, Gary, you want to go out and change the world. You're upset about 401 things, and that's okay. That's who you are.
Yeah.
You can't change any of that. You can't control any of that. The only thing you can really have an effect on is those within 3 feet around you. You know, which is your family.
Yeah.
Kind of go out from there. You can't change the world, but you look around. You don't have to go very far to see needs, and a need may be encouragement.
True.
Encourage somebody. Let them know you're aware of them. You know, I see you.
Yep.
And things like that mean a lot instead of being isolated and scared. There's a lot of fear out there right now.
Amazing the population that we have around us and how lonely it can be sometimes.
Yes, exactly.
And especially for going back to our theme today, especially for business owners who are supposed to be king of the hill, right? Many years ago, I had a business owner that owned a couple of restaurants. He committed suicide. And he left a note that basically says that along the lines of, sometimes the lion needs help too.
Yeah, it's lonely at the top.
Yeah, and so it's you never want it to come to that for sure, but yeah, being encouraging to someone around you or being kind to someone around you doesn't really cost you anything.
That's the kind of thing people remember, which it's again being kind to your future self and people around you, and not losing the game, in the very last second by leaving a mess.
Yeah.
Financially or relationally.
Mm-hmm.
It's important.
Yeah.
It's hard to do.
It really comes back down to that planning, that comprehensive planning, and going through every single step. And obviously insurance is a part of that, especially in your younger years when you have a family to support, debts to erase if you're gone home, stuff like that. Yep. Well, Gary, you're well thought of in the community for your encouragement and your commitment to a lot of the nonprofits. The collaborative is one of those. I think we have them on as a guest in the next couple of weeks. But thank you for taking time to come on here.
Pleasure.
And always enjoyed the conversation. Brad?
Oh, it was
Until
great.
next time.
Thanks for listening to a Wiser Retirement podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure to subscribe wherever you're listening, that way you don't miss any new episodes. We would also appreciate if you could leave a rating and review. If you have any questions about anything that was discussed today, head to wiserinvestor.com and reach out. We would love to hear from you. This episode was produced and edited by Lilton Moore.